hands. Everyone wants to stand, I roll in my jag. Fast like the wind, everybody's on the board. Room to the streets, I'm the man with the plan. Got the world in my hands, every woman wants to stand. I roll in my jag, fast like the wind. Every mission I take, you know I'm gonna win. Ladies on my left, danger on the right. But it's love and respect that I'm bringing to the fight.
I'm the dad with the 9 lives, playing the game. A heart full of fire, can't be tamed. In the shadows I roam, but I shine so bright. With every step I take, I'm doing it right.
Got my eyes on the prize, but my heart's in the beat. J-Cat's on the mic, bring the heat to the street. When it comes to the ladies, I'm smooth like silk, but don't get it twisted. I'm the man with the milk. For every tear that falls, I'm the hand to hold. In this world of chaos, I'm the story untold. With every breath I take, every move I make, I'm writing my name.
Welcome to the adventures of J-Cat, where thrills meet tenderness in a captivating blend of sexy, excitement and romance. Hosted by the adventurous Jay Bahari, this hip podcast invites listeners to embark on exhilarating journeys filled with captivating stories and heartfelt moments. Each episode explores the intriguing intersections of adventure and love, transporting you to breathtaking romance and inspiring tales that will leave you yearning for your own escapades. Whether you're a seasoned traveler, a hopeless romantic, or simply someone who appreciates a great story, J-Cat Adventures promises a delightful escape into the extraordinary, sparking your imagination and igniting your wanderlust. Tune in and let the adventures begin.
Playing the game, a heart full of fire, can't be tamed. In the shadows I roam, but I shine so bright. With every step I
Discover the magic of J-Cat Adventures. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of J-Cat. Get ready for a thrilling ride, filled with romance, suspense, and crime. All served with a side of classic drama. Every week, a new episode of J-Cat the Fearless. It will keep you on the edge of your seat. If you're a fan of the suave and sophisticated James Bond, you'll be hooked on J-Cat's adventures. Join the excitement by subscribe to the Jay Bahari podcast for a weekly dose of action-packed entertainment. I am your host, Jay Bahari. Let's go. J-Cat. A kiss, in the cold. The biting wind cut through the streets of Zurich as J-Cat stepped out of his luxury hotel, the cold night air stinging his face. He adjusted the high collar of his designer coat and slid on a pair of leather gloves, the crisp click of his boots echoing in the silent streets. The city was a stark contrast to the sun-drenched beaches he was used to, but the mission had brought him here, and nothing could be allowed to distract him, not even the chill that crept into his bones. For J-Cat, Zurich was another stop in a life lived on the edge. A world of power, luxury, and danger followed him wherever he went. This time, the stakes were higher than ever. $1 billion ordeal gone wrong had entangled him in a web of deceit and betrayal, and he wasn't the type to let it go unchecked. As he made his way toward the heart of the city, his mind wandered briefly to Eva, the woman he had left behind in California. She had wanted to come with him, but J-Cat had learned long ago that bringing someone into his world meant risking their life. Eva had been heartbroken when he left, and though his chest tightened at the thought of her, he pushed it away. Emotions were a luxury he couldn't afford, especially now. His target was nearby. The intel he had gathered pointed to a woman named Sienna Sokolov, a Russian billionaire with connections to some of the most dangerous men in the world. She had acquired an ancient artifact, a piece of art that held the key to unlocking a hidden fortune. But Sienna was no ordinary woman. She was as elusive as she was beautiful, and getting close to her would require more than just brute force. J-Cat reached the elegant restaurant where Sienna was set to meet with an anonymous buyer. The place reeked of wealth, crystal chandeliers, velvet curtains, and gold accents. He stepped inside, blending effortlessly with the crowd. His eyes scanned the room, quickly landing on her. Sienna Sokolov was everything the rumors said she would be. Tall, striking, with raven black hair that cascaded down her back like silk. She was dressed in a sleek, black dress that hugged her every curve, her lips painted a deep, seductive red. But it wasn't her beauty that caught J-Cat's attention, it was the way she carried herself. She exuded power, control, and an air of danger that sent a ripple of tension through the room. J-Cat took a seat at the bar, keeping a low profile while watching her from a distance. He knew how to play this game. Patience was key. He would wait for the right moment to approach her, to slip into her world unnoticed. As he sipped his drink, he saw Sienna glance his way, her eyes briefly locking with his. A flicker of recognition passed between them. She knew who he was. The game had begun. It was nearly an hour later when Sienna stood to leave, her heels clicking on the marble floor as she moved toward the exit. J-Cat waited a beat before following her, his movements calculated and precise. Outside, the cold air hit him again, but he barely noticed it. His mind was focused on the woman ahead of him and the secret she held. Sienna moved through the streets with the grace of a predator, slipping into a nearby alley. J-Cat followed, his pulse quickening as he prepared for the confrontation. She was alone now, her body silhouetted against the glow of the streetlights. He could sense the tension in the air, the anticipation. "J-Cat," she said softly, her voice carrying through the cold night. "I was wondering when you would finally make your move." He stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "You knew I was coming." Sienna smirked, her red lips curving into a dangerous smile. "Of course. You're not the only one with eyes and ears in this city. I've been waiting for you." J-Cat's body tensed. He hadn't expected her to be so prepared, but it didn't matter. He had faced tougher adversaries than her before, and he wasn't about to back down. "You have something that belongs to me." Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "You mean the artifact? It's worth a fortune, you know. Are you here to buy it, or take it by force?" J-Cat stepped closer, his voice low and commanding. "I don't play games, Sienna. Hand it over, and I'll walk away." Sienna laughed softly, the sound echoing in the empty alley. "You think I'm afraid of you? I've heard about you, J-Cat. The man who never loses. The man who leaves destruction in his wake. But you forget, I've faced monsters before. I've tamed them." Her words sent a shiver down his spine, but J-Cat didn't flinch. "This isn't a negotiation." Sienna's smile faded, her eyes narrowing. For a moment, they stood in silence, the tension thick between them. Then, before J-Cat could react, she reached into her coat and pulled out a small, silver key. She held it up, the light reflecting off its surface. "This is what you're after, isn't it?" she whispered, her voice filled with challenge. J-Cat's eyes locked on the key. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the key to unlocking the vault that held the artifact. But something about the way Sienna held it made him hesitate. "Why are you giving it to me?" he asked, his voice filled with suspicion. Sienna stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "Because I don't need it anymore. What I want is you." Before J-Cat could respond, Sienna closed the distance between them, her lips crashing against his in a sudden, fiery kiss. The cold night melted away as her warmth enveloped him, her hands gripping his jacket with a desperation he hadn't expected. For a brief moment, J-Cat allowed himself to get lost in the kiss, the heat between them igniting something deep inside him. But then, reality came crashing back. He pulled away, his breath ragged, his heart pounding. "Sienna, this isn't." "I know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But I've been alone in this world for so long. I fought for everything, clawed my way to the top. And now, I just want something real." J-Cat's mind raced. He knew he couldn't trust her, she was dangerous, unpredictable. But there was something in her eyes, something that told him she was speaking the truth. He reached for the key, but as his fingers brushed against hers, she pulled away, her expression hardening. "Take it," she said softly. "But know this, if you walk away tonight, you'll never see me again." J-Cat hesitated. He had always been a man of logic, of strategy. Emotions had no place in his world. But something about Sienna had gotten under his skin. He couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her, the attraction, the danger. With a sigh, he took the key from her hand. "Goodbye, Sienna." Her eyes flickered with something, sadness, maybe, but she nodded, stepping back into the shadows. "Goodbye, J-Cat." As he turned to leave, the cold air hit him once more, but this time, it didn't bother him. The kiss lingered on his lips, a reminder of the woman he had left behind. J-Cat had faced many enemies, but Sienna had been different. She had been a challenge, not just to his mission, but to his heart. As J-Cat walked away from the dimly lit alley, the icy air seemed to grow even colder. Each step he took felt heavier, his mind replaying the kiss with Sienna. There was something more to her, something he hadn't allowed himself to explore. But he knew better. Getting attached wasn't part of his game. The streets of Zurich were quiet, with only the distant hum of late-night traffic and the occasional footsteps of strangers echoing off the walls. J-Cat's thoughts drifted back to Eva, back in California. She was the woman he should be thinking about, the woman who had loved him without conditions. But now, his mind was clouded with Sienna. That kiss, the warmth in her touch, and the sadness in her eyes, it all lingered. He had told her goodbye, but was it really over? J-Cat shook his head, forcing himself to focus. He had the key now, and that meant the next part of the mission was in motion. But a strange sense of unease settled in his gut, one he couldn't shake. Sienna had given up too easily. That was the problem. Women like her, strong, powerful, and in control, didn't just hand over something as valuable as the artifact's key without a plan. He was being played, he could feel it. As he rounded the corner toward the garage where his car was parked, J-Cat's instinct screamed at him. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He slowed his pace, blending into the shadows, his senses on high alert. Something wasn't right. Then he saw it, a black SUV parked across the street. The engine was idling, but the windows were tinted too dark for him to see inside. He knew that vehicle didn't belong. Zurich's elite didn't drive around in cars like that. It had to be a setup. J-Cat slipped into an alleyway, ducking out of sight as the SUV slowly rolled forward. His mind raced. He needed to get out of the area fast, but more importantly, he needed to figure out who was after him. Was it Sienna's men, or was there another player in the game he hadn't considered? His thoughts snapped back to Sienna. She had warned him with that kiss, hadn't she? That desperate goodbye wasn't just about her feelings. It had been a warning. She was telling him to get out before it was too late. But now, J-Cat wasn't one to run. He wasn't about to let some shadowy syndicate dictate his fate. If they wanted a fight, he'd give them one. Pulling out his phone, he tapped a few buttons, sending an encrypted message to his contact in the city, a hacker named Carl who had helped him in past missions. If anyone could get eyes on who was tracking him, it was Carl. As he moved through the dark alley, the sounds of the SUV faded, but he could still feel them circling. They weren't giving up. Whoever was hunting him was in it for the long game. His phone buzzed. It was Carl. "They're tapping into your comms," Carl's message read. "Whoever they are, they've got some serious tech." Of course they were. J-Cat cursed under his breath. This wasn't just some random thug after him, this was a full-scale operation. That meant time was running out. He needed to disappear, fast. He headed toward an old safe house he had set up years ago in Zurich, a place only he knew about. The cold wind whipped through the narrow streets, and for a moment, he wondered how much longer he could live this life. Always on the run, always in the crosshairs of powerful enemies. It was exhausting. But before he could dwell too long on his thoughts, something else nagged at him. Sienna. Why had she let him go? Was there more to her plan than just giving him the key? He hated to admit it, but she had gotten under his skin, and not just because of the kiss. There was something about her that felt unfinished. By the time he reached the safe house, his mind was spinning with possibilities. He entered the cold, sparse room, flicking on a single light. The safe house was more of a bunker, with reinforced steel doors and windows that couldn't be breached. He was safe for now, but the real question was, what was his next move? Just as he started to settle in, his phone buzzed again. It was another message from Carl. "Bad news, mate. Sienna's been taken. You need to get out now." J-Cat's stomach twisted. Sienna taken? This didn't make sense. She was supposed to be the one in control. She had the resources, the power. How could someone have taken her? Before he could react, another message flashed across his screen. "You don't have much time. They're coming for you too." J-Cat's mind raced. The people who had been after him in that SUV, the ones who had likely kidnapped Sienna, weren't just after the key or the artifact. They wanted something bigger. And somehow, J-Cat was now a part of their game. His thoughts returned to Sienna. As much as he wanted to walk away, to finish the mission and forget her, something tugged at him. She had given him the key, yes, but she had also given him something more, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. Whether he wanted to admit it or not, he couldn't leave her behind. Not like this. J-Cat stood up, his body tense, his mind clear. The dark, ruthless side of him that had served him so well in the past began to resurface. The streets would become his playground once again, and this time, there would be no mercy. No one was safe. Not until he had Sienna back. Not until he put an end to this game. And whoever had taken her would soon learn, J-Cat didn't scare easy, and he sure as hell didn't leave anyone alive who crossed him. J-Cat stood motionless for a moment, his body absorbing the chill of the room. The reality of the situation set in. Sienna had been taken, and it wasn't just about the artifact anymore. Something far more sinister was unfolding, and it was pulling him in deeper with every move. He grabbed his gun from the table, sliding it into the holster beneath his jacket. The cold steel was a familiar weight against his chest, a reminder of the life he led, a life that never truly let him rest. His phone buzzed again. It was Carl. "Meet me at the docks. I've got some intel for you. But watch your back. They're closing in fast." J-Cat didn't hesitate. He had to act now, or everything would spiral out of control. Leaving the safe house, he stepped into the biting night air, pulling his coat tighter around him. His mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, but one rose above the rest, getting Sienna back, no matter the cost. The streets of Zurich were nearly empty, the faint glow of streetlights casting long shadows along the cobblestones. J-Cat moved swiftly through the alleys, staying out of sight as he made his way toward the docks. The air grew even colder as he neared the water, and a fine mist hovered just above the surface, obscuring his view. But nothing escaped his sharp eyes. Every movement, every sound was analyzed, catalogued, and prepared for a response. The docks were quiet when he arrived, but his instincts told him something was off. Carl was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a faint shuffle of feet in the distance, hidden by the mist. J-Cat's muscles tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for his gun. "Carl?" he called out softly, his voice barely a whisper in the cold night air. No answer. He took a step forward, his senses on high alert. Then he heard it, a scuffle, muffled voices, and the sound of a body hitting the ground. He moved quickly, darting between the crates stacked along the dock until he found the source of the noise. Carl was on the ground, clutching his side, blood oozing through his fingers. "Damn it, Jay," Carl groaned, wincing in pain. "They got to me before I could warn you." J-Cat crouched down beside him, scanning the area for any signs of their attackers. "Who?" he asked, his voice cold, controlled. Carl coughed, his face pale. "The Syndicate. They're after you. After the key. Sienna. She's—" J-Cat's heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. "What about Sienna?" Carl grimaced. "She's not what she seems, Jay. She's been playing both sides. But now, they've taken her too. She's in over her head." J-Cat clenched his jaw, the anger surging through him. He should have known. Sienna had always been too smooth, too calculated. But something inside him still wouldn't let her go. He couldn't just walk away. "Where did they take her?" J-Cat demanded. Carl shook his head. "I don't know. But I've got something for you. It's a location, a warehouse by the old shipyard. That's where they're holding the artifact. If you find that, you'll find Sienna." J-Cat's eyes darkened, the beast within him stirring to life. He didn't have time to play games anymore. This was about survival, and if there was one thing he knew, it was how to survive. "Hang tight, Carl," J-Cat said, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm going to end this." With one last glance at his wounded friend, J-Cat disappeared into the night, his destination clear. The old shipyard wasn't far, but it would be heavily guarded. He knew that. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. He wasn't the same man he had been before. Too many things had changed, too many lines had been crossed. J-Cat moved swiftly through the narrow streets, his mind focused, his heart cold. The docks gave way to the shipyard, an eerie silence blanketing the area. The mist clung to the air, making everything seem ghostly and surreal. But J-Cat's resolve never wavered. He approached the warehouse with the precision of a predator stalking its prey. There were guards stationed at the entrance, 4 of them, armed and alert. J-Cat smirked to himself. He'd dealt with worse. Without hesitation, he slipped into the shadows, circling the building and taking note of the exits, the windows, and the weakest points in the structure. He would need to get in and out quickly, and if it came to a fight, he wouldn't leave anyone standing. The first guard went down silently, a quick snap of the neck that left him crumpled on the ground. The second barely had time to react before J-Cat's knife sliced through the air, the blade finding its mark with deadly precision. The other 2 guards didn't even see him coming, taken out before they could raise an alarm. J-Cat slipped through the side entrance of the warehouse, his eyes scanning the dimly lit interior. Crates and machinery filled the space, but in the center of the room, illuminated by a single overhead light, was a large steel container. And next to it, Sienna. She was bound, her wrists tied to a chair, her face bruised but defiant. J-Cat's pulse quickened, but he forced himself to stay calm. He couldn't rush in without knowing what he was up against. Just as he took a step forward, a voice echoed through the warehouse. "Ah, J-Cat. I was wondering when you'd show up." Vladik. The man J-Cat had been hunting for months stepped out from the shadows, a cruel smile twisting his lips. He was flanked by more guards, all armed and ready. "Let her go, Vladik," J-Cat growled, his hand resting on his gun. Vladik chuckled, shaking his head. "I don't think so. You see, Jay, you've been a thorn in my side for far too long. But now, I have something you want. The girl. The artifact. It's all here." J-Cat's eyes flicked to Sienna. She was watching him, her expression unreadable. Was she still playing him, or was she truly caught in Vladik's web? "Let's make this simple," J-Cat said, his voice icy. "You let her go, and I'll make sure your death is quick." Vladik laughed again, but there was an edge to it now. He knew J-Cat was serious. "You think you can just walk in here and threaten me?" J-Cat didn't respond. He didn't need to. His hand moved like lightning, pulling his gun and firing a shot that took out one of Vladik's guards. The room erupted into chaos as gunfire rang out, but J-Cat was already moving, dodging between crates and machinery, his instincts sharp. In the end, it was Vladik who was outmatched. J-Cat had slipped back into the darkness, the ruthless side of him taking control. And when it was over, Vladik lay dead at his feet, the warehouse silent once more. J-Cat turned to Sienna, cutting her bindings and helping her to her feet. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and something else, something deeper. "You came for me," she whispered. J-Cat didn't answer. He simply pulled her into his arms, the cold of the night forgotten as their lips met in a fierce, desperate kiss. This time, there were no goodbyes, no hesitation. For now, the nightmare was over. But J-Cat knew better than to let his guard down. There would always be another storm on the horizon. And that's a wrap on another thrilling episode of J-Cat Adventures. I hope you've been on the edge of your seat, caught up in the mystery, excitement, and danger that always follows J-Cat wherever he goes. From heart-pounding action to deep emotional connections, J-Cat's world never fails to surprise. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, or click the follow button, so you never miss out on the next big adventure. Whether you're into romance, suspense, or mind-bending mysteries, there's always something more coming. And don't be shy, reach out. You can audio call or audio text chat with me directly. I'd love to know what you want to see next in J-Cat's world or hear your thoughts on today's episode. Want to dive deeper? Explore more of J-Cat's thrilling escapades by grabbing an ebook at www.jcatadventures.com or head over to Amazon for paperbacks and hard copies. Trust me, you'll want to have J-Cat's latest adventure right in your hands. And remember, the podcast continues across your favorite platforms: iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Wherever you go, J-Cat is right there, ready to bring you into his world of suspense, romance, and nonstop action. But it doesn't end here. This journey is just the beginning. Stay tuned for the next episode, where J-Cat takes on new challenges, faces dangerous foes, and maybe even finds love in unexpected places. Until next time, keep that spirit of adventure burning bright. The world is filled with endless possibilities, and J-Cat is proof that no mystery is too big to solve. Remember, adventure is thrilling, but the heart's deepest desires are the greatest mysteries of all. Keep chasing passion, stay fearless, and never let love slip through your fingers. This is Jay Bahari, signing off. Stay curious, stay bold, and always keep exploring, because the next chapter of J-Cat Adventures is just around the corner.
In the shadows he roams, but he shines so bright. With every step he takes, he's doing it right. He's J-Cat, the name that rings in every city. Slick with the moves, ain't nothing here pretty. From the boardroom to the streets, he's the man with the plan. Got the world in my hands, every woman wants to stand. He rolling
our mission.